communication, as you know, that give us a hard time, and those are concerning idiomatic expressions or vocabulary that does not has an equal form or somewhat equivalent in the other language. The metaphors that are used for comparing uh, different items, that those would generally go along some language criteria of what is acceptable to compare and what is not. That is cultural, which is cultural, just like idiomatic is. Everything that is idiomatic is cultural as well. And folklore is the purest form of culture as it is inherited from other populations, history, and ancestors. That includes everything: music, food, language, etc. And customs and values and belief systems and religion, spiritual practices. All of this is a part of the untranslatable in many cases. And well, there isn't anything we can do as a translator but to learn how to cope with this special challenge. That's a part of the process. So yeah, bear with me here because we'll have to go ahead and cover this piece of information and material from first a theoretical perspective and then from a practical perspective, right? So there is a category of language forms which are cultural bound, okay? They're culture bound and culture specific as to defy translation by routine methods, right? We cannot say that we can translate everything. Some things are just impossible to translate. These are the expressions, generally idiomatic, metaphors and their variants, and that collection of proverbs, word plays, and sayings that could be cataloged as linguistic folklore. Okay, as I said, folklore is one of the original or purest forms of culture, right? As it is heritage, essentially. Heritage equals identity. It's the core of what people could say about who they are. The problem with these forms is that they're so deeply rooted in their original culture that their deep meaning has little, if anything, to relate to surface structure. So, yeah, here we're using language, or we're putting this in words that are pretty much linguistic originated, right? Analysis of messages go at different levels. We have, as you know, stemming from Krashen and stemming also from other important authors that, it's needless to mention here. There are deep level understandings of things and surface level. Surface level is what you see, what you hear, what you read. However, deeper meanings require analysis, and those are the ones that a translator needs to deal with, because that's where the core of the message is. If the translator does not fully grasp, you know, what is it that people mean, then there will be limitations in the quality of that translation because it's going to be poor or incomplete, right? So there's also the case of common words which have apparently valid cognates in other languages. This is because of shared roots, as you know, Latin, which is commonly shared by Spanish, English, and Spanish. But we should turn out on closer examination to have been changed by culture, so they evolve differently or divergently as time goes on, and human relations and human dynamics become diverse, right? So then many valid present day valid cognates become eventually invalid, right? That's part of the phenomenon. So let's think of a word commonly used, everywhere in the world. The word democracy, right? This is a good example. So um, take a look at in how many political parties and political structures um, there is this word present. Yeah, you even have it here in our very own context. You have Partido Revolucionario Democrático, and then you have democracia and democracy, widely used. Take a look, the German Democratic Republic, the former um, left left-oriented Germany before the integration after the fall of the Wall of Berlin. You have the U.S. Democratic National Committee that is going to be running in an election against the Republicans in the U.S. You have the National Endowment, just to bring some examples, okay? Many of these structured human organizations and groups use that, and each one of them mean it with a different intention. We cannot say that the democracy or democracia or whatever term they use that means that it means or could be explained along the same lines. All right, you even have in China, you don't have a democratic party, but you have the People's Republic, the People's Republic of China, the people's. That's like democratic. So yeah, and we'll know it is not really democratic either. So they all expect people to understand or regard highly what they say. But if you scratch the surface, then you'll discover that it's not true that there's a democracy. Generally, there are boards that make decisions just like in a company. And most of these organizations are generally privately owned and run, right, by individuals or groups of individuals, right? And well, we have a hard time translating and being accurate, right? And explaining what people mean with these fancy names. So just to bring in an example, right? So it's also important to be aware that we may need to sacrifice some formal equivalences in favor of some more dynamic or functional equivalences. And why is that? The reason is because everything boils down to meaning. If we want to be meaningful and clear, then we must try to make the translation accessible for the reader or the interpretation for our listeners. We want to make things very clear for them, or the clearest we can to the best of our ability. So now pragmatism, in other words, should be the governing factor. Okay, everybody knows that this is a subfield of general linguistics, and pragmatism is not only being pragmatic, like making decisions based on the information or the data available. That's not what it means. What it means really is that we need to learn how to communicate certain non-verbal or not obviously laid out communication processes. What do I mean? If you have to explain courtesy, if you have to deal with politeness, if you have to go ahead and explain how people, date, and how rejection is supposed to be performed, or how should you claim something in case you feel your rights have been violated, or you feel something is unfair. It's not only the language that is used for that specific performance, it's also how you go ahead and you do so, right? That is effectively that native speakers or your audience will understand on both sides of the aisle, the English speaking part and the counterpart. They need to understand what is really going on. And adjusting all this is also part of that process. And this is, as you read here, the lexicon, right? The lexicon and the syntax of the language is also involved. So when you pull from pragmatics, it means that you have already considered all the other core skills, right, that are involved in performing communication, which involve the grammar, the lexicon, of course, the vocabulary, and whatever it is that is relevant for communication. Now, idioms, idiomatic expressions, are the most common of these untranslatables, right? What is an idiom really? Okay, it's important to define an idiom. An idiom is a figure of speech. That's what it is. And this is one that involves two words, in most of cases, which cannot be understood literally. And the meaning of an idiom or idiomatic expression is carried by the words as a unit, not individually. So there is some meaning behind this combination. This is the way language operates at the surface level, but then the meaning that comes behind the idiom, that's the deeper understanding required, right? The error in attempting a literal translation is more than obvious. You cannot say bring up and say bring is one thing and up is another thing. Bring up is one concept. Or look up, we cannot say look is one word and then up is another translation. No, it's look up together, right? And so it goes on and on. The deep meaning can only be given by the actual usage in the culture involved, right? Some examples in English and Spanish. So a laughing matter, right? A laughing matter. We cannot say un tema risible only. There must be something behind that, right? All right. So burlesco, or we could say something cómico instead of saying un tema de risa, right? Just to give an example. We have others like according to Hoyle, right? Very traditional, and we're gonna say según Hoyle, and what it really means is this is understood, and everybody knows about this idea that we're trying to communicate. That's what we imply with such an expression, right? Birds of a feather, right? That's another one we can say. It's uh, pájaros de un color. That doesn't make any sense. If that'll be surface level rendering, right? A deeper level should be something like um, desde su naturaleza o de su grupo o iguales, right? That's birds of a feather. Dutch street, right? You see here Dutch street. We may say something like una un ofrecimiento a la holandesa. That if we say that captures partially what we mean when that street would be pretty much something like vamos a medias, right? In this matter, in this agreement, we are, halfway, or we're going 50-50 or 50% each party, right? That's more like it. So, a grandes rasgos, all right, that's from Spanish. If we say something like that in English, that definitely cannot be like drafting or from a sketchy perspective, because that just takes the listener or reader away from the message. So, in general lines, or something like probably you know from a general perspective, that sort of thing communicates better what we mean by that. So a la americana. So a la americana, no, the American way, right? So we'll have to explain that a little bit further, but that requires some cultural knowledge. So take a look, carne de gallina, dar una mano, el árbol de la ciencia. All these are expressions that contain a great deal of cultural content that deserve explanation and attention on, from a translator's perspective. That's part of a translator's job. So I don't know if you have any comment or question, because I kind of overheard somebody speaking. Is there a question or comment? I kind of overheard somebody. Anybody? Okay. So we're moving on. And well, Before we move forward, I'd like to ask the audience to help me out with this three expressions. These expressions over here, I'm gonna turn them red or I'm gonna highlight them. I would like you to think a little bit and help me out because you know English. You're all advanced users of English. Let me know how would you put something like this, like a la americana. I just told you a couple of those, like birds of a feather, Dutch street, and so forth. Let me know how you would uh, eh, either interpret or translate something like a la americana, carne de gallina, dar una mano, el árbol de la ciencia. These kinds of expressions, they're very cultural, and those deserve a little bit of thought because it's not that we're turning something simple complicated. No, we're trying to be effective and do the work the right way, right? So that's the intention behind this. So here right now, your comments, or based on your experience as a user of English yourself, what it is that you would say to mean that.
All right, good morning. So a la americana, I've never heard that one. But carne de gallina is goosebumps. Dar una mano, give a hand. El árbol de la ciencia, tree of knowledge.
Right, right. Yeah, just like Dutch Street, a la Americana, if you take a look at Lingway or any of those friendly and open dictionaries, you're going to run into those involve a way of paying. No one is, Americans always say that there is no free lunch or there's no free meal. That's exactly, or I think it's a little bit more precise. There is no free meal that you can have your cake and eat it. All of that is involved with this mindset that if you are going to do things the American way, then there
Also,
is no host for you. You have to assume your own bill and pay for your
right,
account, right? Just
right,
like Dutch
exactly.
Street. Somebody is speaking. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Question.
somebody's been quizás purua. Yeah, that's exactly what it means, that everybody pays its own fees or bills. That's how I have heard and used it.
Yeah, it's just like the Dutch way and so on. It's like in some cultures, uh, there's generally the host is the one responsible, or the hostess, the one involved in assuming the costs for a celebration, but not the case in Anglo cultures, which are more pragmatic, right? Everyone's paying for their own thing, and that's the intention. So yeah, the goosebumps, exactly. Carne de
Yes.
gallina, very good. So what does that really mean? That you get this symptomatic type of or revealing type of I don't know, condition or something? Or what do you mean exactly? What is it that they mean when they say um you have the goosebumps, or it gives you the goosebumps? What does that mean? What you mean is something's creepy, or something is
Yeah, it is an involuntary reaction that produces yeah, like a sensation of chills, of being scared about while listening and that can be used as chicken skin also, but that's what goosebump means.
The goosebumps. Yes. Carne de gallina, actually, the goosebumps, it's a body reaction to something unexpected, something that is very scary. Al Americana, I have heard, and I used to, um, cuentas separadas.
mhm,
Cuentas
mhm.
separadas. And of course, dar una mano to help out.
Mhm.
And el árbol de
Yeah.
la ciencia is reference to a source of knowledge.
Mhm.
Árbol de la ciencia could refer to tradition, could refer to solid evidence, and it's used like that.
Mhm.
Very, very illustrative. There is a tree. No, there is no tree, but there is a collection of knowledge.
Exactly.
Really.
Very good. Thank you, Professor. And I should say this, many of these expressions differ completely altogether from our Latino culture. For example, going Dutch or doing it a la Americana, if you want to say it, then what that means is that dating cannot be that the men pay alone or only or pay for the bill or invite someone and the man is paying because feminism, you know, that is long established in these other cultures, they don't see it that way. Everybody contributes to pay for any bill. And that is not the way it's supposed to be. So in our Latino culture, just to be very honest, I think women are used to not pay, right? And I see that all the time, all over Latin America. But in the United States, it does not work that way. You have to pay for your own thing, regardless of the fact that you're being invited out on a date. Many people say this is not so, but their expectations, and what matters is the expectations, right? Exactly. Lend a hand or give a hand. That's help. And the tree of sciences, or the tree of knowledge, right? It's a proverbial expression concerning what is known, what is acceptable, what is right. Metaphors and similes, right? This is part of this category of the untranslatable that we started talking about this morning. These are both figurative comparisons of one thing to another. We could say that they're secondary in communication. No, they're more important than we believe. And they rule a great deal of the communication that happens um, among the people, social communication. Some comparisons are good, just like some topics are good to speak about, others are just taboo, or you're not supposed to speak about those things, or because that will make everybody uncomfortable, make your interlocutor uncomfortable. So yeah, for example, John is a rock in this time of trouble. Okay, take a look. John is a rock in this time of trouble. What you're saying is that John is solid person, reliable person, right? So what is that? That's a metaphor, because what you're doing is that you're kind of personifying John, turning John into something else. That's a metaphor. Uh, we could say something like, for example, the problem is a bear, right? The problem is a bear. A bear is a very dangerous animal, and a tricky one also, and smart. It's very difficult to kill because it's very strong. So it's something that is not going to go away until you deal with it, right? You come to grips with it. The problem is very another metaphor. Troops were sowing fields of wheat. Take a look at that. I think I brought that one before here in our seminar. Uh, right? What that implies is that people will move along and invade. That's the way I see it, right? We invade is similar, something similar to putting boots on the ground, because one thing is a military operation at a distance, and another thing is a full-blown invasion, right, in which troops are going to occupy a territory. That involves sending troops to be killed and to kill other people, right? So that's a different thing. So that is a way to um, um, make a very violent step, like something liked, but there is nothing liked about war. War is very bloody and very, very bad and negative for humans. What war means is death. So, of course, in a way, it's a metaphor of death. He bought the farm in Vietnam. Okay, so what that means is that you go for farm to live a peaceful life, but Vietnam is disputed territory to the point that there were two Vietnams, right? And we all know that there is, or at least there wasn't, in people's minds, a peaceful idea behind Vietnam. So this is it. Now, in a simile, the comparison is more directly using the word like or as, like as cool as a cucumber. You're not saying the person is a cucumber, but what you're doing is that he says like a cucumber or as a cucumber, like an anchor in a storm. What you're doing is you're saying that similarity, the person is similar in his or her unwavering commitment or decisions that he or she makes that turn him very solid and reliable. He swam like a fish, it's like a fish in the water, someone who feels comfortable in a situation or could handle probably a difficult situation. So, yeah, this is exemplifying what is untranslatable, right? Many words across language pairs fall into this category. I was looking for the Portuguese word because it's closest to a saudade. Saudade. This one, I think, is a kind of nostalgia. It's a feeling of not of missing one's roots or origin or what is familiar, but in Portuguese, it carries other connotations, right? So there is one thing at the denotation level, but the connotations are different. As it seems, it's something that describes an emotion that is not something that only the Portuguese-speaking people will feel, of course not, but it's something that they highlight because it matters and it makes their behavior relevant, right? So every culture has a way of carrying themselves that generally has to do with emotions. So saudade is one of those words that carries this load in terms of meaning, which are difficult to process and translate accurately. Others are utopios and komorebi, right? Which, of course, are from other language families. And it will be a good thing for us to do some research and discuss them and compare and see what is possible and not possible to translate. So going back to metaphors and symbols, we must highlight here that the structure of metaphors and symbols consists of a topic and then a comment about the topic, right? That's the way we make it effective. The topic itself has no special translation problem, but the comment on the topic usually grows differently across cultures, right? Making an exact translation very difficult. In fact, the comparison may involve things or concepts that do not exist in the target language, culture, or language. So, when translating the symbol as pure snow into Indian languages in the Amazon basin, there is no word for snow available because it is outside the tribe's experience. As simple as this. If you're going to refer to something or you're going to be being referential about something that is not part of the context, that is going to create a problem in communication because people don't know what you're talking about, right? They just don't know. The topic or notion of whiteness is known, yes, of course. And the best solution then is to find something similar in that culture that could make the comparison equivalent or similar, to some extent. So here is when similes and metaphors kick in, right? Here for Amazon tribes, maybe it's the clouds or the feathers of a bird or something that has a similar quality or shades of color that is descriptive or somewhat descriptive. So the translator sometimes is in trouble because he or she has to think of something that would work, right? If to preserve meaning, right? Not an easy task. Other problems are caused by the comparison having a different value in different cultures. So different value in different cultures. Okay. For example, the English metaphor, he's an ox, right? Eh, if I said he's as strong as an ox, that'll be a simile. And I'm not telling people that he is an ox, right? Which is an animal. Of course, that connotes strength and massive size. But in other cultures, that's offensive, as you know. So we need to be careful. Here we have an instance here, emasculated, passive, not very smart. Okay, hardly a compliment. It's not a compliment, right? You're insulting someone. So a technique that could be useful when dealing with metaphors is to turn them into similes. It's like to say the person is like or is as something else, right? For the comparison. And then, right, generally similes are clearer. And when this is done, the translator searches his own memory bank for equivalent similes. If none is found, it's good to consult colleagues, native speakers, AI. Okay, here I decided to bring in some very difficult expressions that I would like you to tell me if you've ever sinned, right? You ever sinned before? Maybe you've run into them through media, who knows? But here we have a few of them. Solitude, cringe, wanderlust, ghosting, facepalm, homesick, flabbergasted, hangry, peckish, firmweth, yearning, creep, eavesdrop. I don't know if you're familiar with them or if you have a comment concerning the use of them. If this is kind of distorted as an image, well, I did my best to make them visible, but I think they're readable. So talk to me about any of these expressions, read them, and let's comment on what they mean in Spanish, of course.
I would like to add a comment about the word cringe. Can you hear me?
Clear, Professor. Yes, go ahead,
Oh,
please.
yes. Yeah, something that called my attention recently is that people are using most of it in social media, the word cringe as it is. Ay, me dio un cringe, something like that. So it called my attention because I knew that it doesn't have like a exact, like a very clear meaning translated, right? But people are using it like that as part of Spanish, right? Mixing with Spanish, right? Maybe because it's like it doesn't have an exact equivalent. Could be. But people
Could,
say,
could
eso
you
ay, me
aid
dio,
us by providing your rendering for cringe? What do you think cringe stands for in Spanish?
it's a like ay, ese video tan cringe, something like that, right? Like or that was eso fue muy cringe, o sea, como que me dio pena ajena. Eh, o me dio un cringe terrible, o sea, como que me morí de pena. Something like that. So
There is not like one scenario for the word cringe. It really depends on the context. It could be also medio cosa. I mean, they're different. There's like a different scenario in every way you can use the word cringe. Matter of
Yes.
fact, the word cringe, if you ask someone to explain what it actually means, there's not one meaning to it either. So, it really depends on context. It depends.
That's context. I
Yeah.
agree with you. It means avergonzarse, and it can apply to several different things.
Yes, yes, several different things. Yes, that's why people are using it in social media as it is, because in English it could be a noun, also an adjective, a verb. So people use it like that with depending on the context. But yes, that's what you are saying.
Great, very good. Thank you. How about others such as creep, for example, or maybe flabbergasted? Have you run into any of them?
Stunned could be probably the closest meaning.
Or maybe people use creep when they are also watching a movie. Eso fue creep. Eso estuvo creep. So they are using it in that way too. Or ghosting also. Also with
Usually,
social media.
when I hear the word creep, I usually think of a very negative meaning. If you say, what a creep thing, it sounds really very, very negative.
Most of these words in English that they're one word, whenever we want to explain that in Spanish, we have to go down into details. It's actually like a sentence. You got to describe the meaning. There's no one word in Spanish to describe it, to describe the meaning.
Well, I have an anecdote with homesick. A couple years ago, I was a volunteer with exchange programs. So there were high school kids, and I told them, please don't get homesick. They look at me and they say, homesick, como thinking that la casa se iba a poner enferma, because that's the way they thought. And then, I saw their faces and I just understood. They didn't have any idea of the meaning of that word.
So yeah, what we happen to occur, what happens is that the variety of emotions are connected to social interactions and communication.
Yes.
And many of them are difficult to explain, right? Especially if the values or the way of thinking is different in another culture. So, for instance, look at facepalm. Facepalm is kind of ashamed if you look at that. It's ashamed, but the facepalm is like someone is, I don't want to see, or I regret, or it's like something is unfortunate. But
Yes.
facepalm is similar to flabbergasted. So it's like an emotion. Here, flabbergasted, if you see the icon, you see it's like someone is astonished. It's like surprised, taken aback by something that is unexpected, right? And same as it happens with hangry, and it's very difficult to translate because a person is angry, constantly angry. It's like hang, and also angry, like
Okay, wait.
permanently angry. Or, huh? Yes.
Okay, so that hangry means it's a combination of the word hungry. Like when you're hungry and you're angry, that's why the word is hangry, because it's an emotion that when you're hungry, you many people are angry I don't know if you remember that commercial for Snickers when they're actually not themselves.
Right.
That's what it's trying to portray. The combination of both feelings. And that's why the word hangry is just a combination of the word hungry and angry.
Yeah, and by the way, what happens is that this is a recurring behavior because people are always hungry. I mean, you're gonna be hungry. Of course, you have to eat every day, right? We eat every day, and medicine says that we're supposed to eat 3 times a day. I don't agree with that anymore because based on what they have now discovered about the human being, but habits. But the reality is that being hungry is like always upset, like you're upset or you change your behavior over something. Take a look at, for example, here we have ghosting. That's I think it's a term that comes from the dating scenario, right? Right? Someone
Yes.
you connect and then you thought you connected, but you didn't because the person is not replying to you anymore.
Yeah.
It's like they hide
Yes.
from someone.
Mhm.
I don't know if there are others you could elaborate on.
Yeah, that's exactly what ghosting is. You're seeing this person, you're talking to this person, and all of a sudden you don't hear from the person. They just disappear. And that's where the term comes from.
Yeah, it's a serious offense for some people or inappropriate social behavior because you're misleading and you're not truthful, not even for that, right? And so it goes on and on. In the case of Wanderlust, um, I think I've seen it connected to tourism. It's like I've seen it in some pamphlets, maybe a couple of magazines. It's like there is this wish to be away and go away from your reality, something like that. It's like a desire to escape, desire to perform some uh, escapism type of, I don't know, sorts. So it's very difficult. And you see, these are instances of the untranslatable. Imagine you're interpreting and people start speaking about eavesdropping and someone being peckish or maybe peckish something. How could you come up with some rendering that helps? Sometimes what you'll do is you skip it, you'll ignore it, or find a possible replacement comes to mind at the moment. But this is very difficult, very challenging for someone to explain. No, we cannot say that ghosting is fantasmear. That doesn't mean anything in Spanish. So people won't understand. Chances are most of the people won't understand it. Okay, it's like
Yes.
trying to say chifear
Yes.
in English.
Okay, in that
Something.
regards, in that regards, or in that sense, I would say ghosting is very specific when it is intentionally done to ignore someone. But there are some other reasons. What you're describing, for example, blocking someone who's very inconvenient or at some point can be bothersome, and then the situation forces us to block the communication, and there are reasons to do that, and the other person should know it. So but ghosting, it's intentional, and it is actually an attitude from it involves an attitude, and it is quite a, I would say, a behavior from teenagers and very young people or youngsters or young adults that happens to socialize in this type of non very serious ways.
Professor, I would like to add something
Mhm.
about this.
Sure.
I always try to, in linguistics, um, I always try to explain to my students about the meaning of words and that we have connotations and we have annotations. And that happens exactly in the English language, right? So I always try to give them a paragraph, and in that paragraph they are going to find a word, and that word have a specific meaning. that doesn't have been applied in other meanings, right? And I always tell to them, meaning is when we usually attach emotions, culture, feelings, beliefs in the word. And the notation is when we have the exact definition, right? That's what something that we found that we can find in the dictionary, right? Bilingual dictionary. So you need to choose or try to be wise when you are going to choose what is the right, even in the same language, right? In this case, English language. And then when we are going to translate or trying to rendering meaning is something else. And that's what happened here. I think most of these words, because the language evolves, human beings have been attaching, the professor says, some of the professors have said, feelings, cultural emotions to the word. So that's why they have that specific and particular meaning in context, right? That's what I tried to say. And when you're going to look up this word into the dictionary, sometimes they do not exist yet because human beings have been these adaptations of these changes to the language itself, right? So we have to take this into account when we are going to look up meanings and equivalents and trying just to look for not maybe an exact meaning, but the closest meanings in the two languages. Proportional meaning, semantics ambiguity is taken into account when you are going to translate. So the notations and connotations has to be with semantic, right? And this is what we are trying to do here, trying just to render meaning from one language to another language. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you captured the intention behind all of this very clearly. Regardless of the category, either lexical,
Yeah.
syntactic, or conceptual of a translation challenge, ultimately what rules is the meaning, right? Everything boils down to meaning, and that is semantics. What people's feelings or emotions or ideas are like, whatever they want to say. Very good. So, yeah, I would recommend very strongly that you took note of these expressions. Some of them are for me, especially some of these are like I've never seen before. Something like fernweh. I've never seen it. Flabbergasted. I don't know. Probably that's connected to gaslighting, which is a strategy or something that people do to others in order to con or um, steal something from them. They do it.
Flabbergasted? Excuse me,
Sure, go
Professor?
ahead.
Flabbergasted.
Right.
Are you talking about flabbergasted? No, it is being surprised
Yeah.
unexpectedly. So
Extremely,
that's
yeah,
why I heard
yeah,
stunned would be
Yeah,
an
yeah,
yeah,
extremely
example.
surprised.
yeah. Extremely surprised, but it's connected also to gaslighting. Why? Because of the way people treat you. They try to lie to you. They are trying to shock you through a impression. I think to some extent, gaslighting and flabbergasted, there one thing is the action, the other one is the consequence. Okay, that's the way I see it. Because to me, flabbergasted is someone is being lied, and they're trying to impress through something false. Because how could you be flabbergasted about something? Or how could you? Why are you supposed to be expecting the unexpected? That's to me that's like con man attitude, right? That's the way I see it. Although such as yearning, I've seen before, but not as with some connotation, right? That as it appears in social media, same as solitude, that being lonely or loneliness, of course, is negative. Now they have turned it into something positive, the solitude. Uh, that's unthinkable of. How could you be turning something negative into something positive? Nobody wants to be alone that way or lonely. So one thing is being alone, left alone, right? And for your peace. Another thing is being lonely, but the solitude is like picking to be alone over the other option. So what exactly is implied here, and so on. Many of them are hard to process and hard to translate, very difficult. So here we have a possible research topic um, concerning emotions and in human reactions. In the case of a metaphor, he's an ox. We could proceed to convert it into a simile, right? He's strong like an ox. Using like an ox is like it disengages this direct comparison. And see what simile in Argentine Gauchos, for example, Spanish carries the same dynamic equivalent of strength. The answer would be like tan fuerte como un caballo. But still, I found it somewhat offensive to tell someone that they're a horse. If none is found, it might be necessary to abandon the simile and metaphor and simply state the quality without any comparison. Era muy fuerte. The meaning has been conveyed, although with a significant loss in the color and elegance of the expression. Sometimes you sacrifice the beauty for preserving meaning or not going away from so far away, you know. The category of proverb and popular saying is usually even more rooted, deeply rooted in culture, all right? Because this is coming from ancestors, from our ancestors. That's the way people speak where we come from, right? And where we come from is where our grandparents and great grandparents were. So, although here it is frequently possible to find formal equivalences, and if not, then to find dynamic equivalences, which convey the same impression or impact, right? There are all kinds of explicit expletives, oaths, and swear words. Okay, all of that is part of this inheritance. These are special categories that must be approached carefully to avoid being offensive, ludicrous. It's like we don't want to be acid, right? The principle of pragmatic dynamic equivalence should reign supreme here, right? And there, if there is any doubt, native speaker could be consulted. This is a good way to get rid of ambiguity. Okay, here I'm gonna, bring in some expressions that are difficult. Once more, I would suggest you to provide uh, some thought, right? Invest a little bit to remember some of these expressions that are part of what we're going through in this seminar. So we have a sobremesa. We read there the conversation that takes place at the dinner table after the meal is over. So anteayer, meaning the day before yesterday. The problem is that you don't find one word that to pin that kind of meaning. You need to build the meaning through different chunks of language, right? Merendar, so going out to have coffee or small treat or small meal. Tutear, meaning to address as tú rather than the formal usted. Mhm. So, very difficult. If you could ever attempt to provide a word that would mean them, that would be a wonderful thing to do. Untranslatable Spanish words, you have there desvelado, for example. Another one that appears, this is taken from online resources, of course, so all of them do exist and they are troublesome. Say juicioso, okay? Someone who's well behaved, responsible, sensible. Take a look down there, it says sobremesa, and then the person is wondering what he or she means, right? Uh, I don't know if you have any comment concerning these kinds of expressions, or if you know others that of a similar quality.
I have a question. I have like two other words because I remember when you asked us to bring a couple words. I have two words and to see if there is an equivalent in English. The word in Spanish is comadre, And the other word is pasear.
What did you do to translate those? Or what do you think could be an approach to translating that, comadre, for example?
Well, there is no word in like one word in English to describe that. You would definitely have to go towards like she is my daughter's godmother. You would have to explain all that. Um and the word pasear is maybe go out. That's the closest I can get to those words.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, maybe take a stroll, or maybe something like maybe something else could mean something like that. Exactly. There are relations that, are meaningless in English. Comadre is one of those. I don't see how people, what they could say is that, well, she's family on X person's side. Something like that could be uh, the case, and this is through the Catholic Church. So, with a Catholic background, then you could probably explain better that you may have someone's relationship because he or she helped you out, baptized a child or son, or your daughter, or someone's sons or daughter. So yes, it's a relationship that it's explained through a religious connection, right? A
Right.
Catholic Church connection, probably.
Yes, that's what I found also. It belongs to the Christian tradition. And actually, there is the function or the role is in, for example, in English, in an Anglo-Saxon tradition, would be like a mentor or a guardian, but not godmother, because that's mostly from the Catholic Church or from the Christian tradition.
I mean, yeah, but nowadays anybody can be a godmother or godfather. It's not really tied to being Catholic or not. It's like everybody does it now. Like my best friend, and if I'm pregnant and I have a best friend, well, that will be my daughter's or son's godmother. Like right nowadays, it's not tied to any like the religious part. It's just because she's my best friend or he is the closest friend to me. So that will be that person.
Yeah, but my question would be then what comadre would be, because that's a relation, it establishes a relation between the person, probably the mother, and
Uh-huh.
the godmothers for the daughter or the son, and then
Hmm.
that's the relation is comadre. What would be a good word to use in that sense semantically?
Yeah, like I said, there is no one word in English because I'm not Catholic and I have a comadre. None of my friends are Catholic, and so it's not really tied to the religious part. It's just because that's my best friend or that's my closest friend. While I was pregnant, and it happens to be that I chose her or him to be, to have that relationship with my daughter or
Right.
son.
Right, like your best friend, but
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
actually more best friend, but I found midwife, and that implies other type of relationships,
yeah.
for example. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a very Latino culture thing, and well, it's sometimes difficult to communicate this in English. So yeah, it's cultural, very culture based type of language, right? Because when I call my friend a compa or compadre, and someone's over here that I call someone compa all the time, and they're gonna ask me what's a compa, then I'll have to explain what a compa relationship is, right? It's a compadre, right? So it's not an easy thing, and sometimes your relatives are also your compadres and comadres, so that will require some explanation, further explanation. Very good. Now, yesterday I was interested in your reactions concerning sobremesa because I think that was unknown for most of us. I don't know if you looked into anything else concerning that. Now, I brought this image here because, as it seems, it's a difficult piece of language. It's a word that gives a hard time uh, for at least explaining to someone who doesn't come from a Latino background or Spanish speaking background, for them to understand that a meal is a social event. I think that people are losing, completely this concept. So this is worth also educating and discussing people, with people. Very good. Okay. I don't want to go that far without getting, into clear and very, concrete examples of what it is like to deal with this, what is not translatable. Usually it's the metaphors, the idioms, the proverbs, the sayings, and these culture-based topics. So these untranslatables are deeply rooted in individual cultures and require that the translator abandon them, any attempt to translate literally word for word. Instead, he should adhere completely to the concept of dynamic equivalence, seeking the target language expression, which has the same impact on the prime reader as the source language original would have on the native speaker of the source language. So if in the question that you have in classroom, you're asked like how should you escape, right? The word for word trap of translating word for word, the reason is the solution is simple. Solution is going meaning by meaning, right? You go from meaning to meaning, and that works by looking at things at a phrase and sentence level rather than at the word level. We cannot have a good glossary that is only tiny, pieces of language like word for word. That doesn't work. What really works is the meaning, and the meaning usually goes at the phrase level or beyond. So, and this is called dynamic equivalence. Dynamic equivalence, which is looking for a good candidate in the language we're trying to translate to or from. That way, we could preserve meaning the best we can. Okay, I have a couple of expressions here that deserve our attention. I don't know if the print is too tiny, but I'm going to go ahead and read this to you because I think these expressions are important for two reasons. Okay, let's look at them. Let me see. We have expressions right here that relate to comparison, to metaphors, right? They're metaphoric in nature. They're metaphoric. And many metaphors in English connect animals or the animal kingdom. Why is this so? It's because of English. That's the way the language is. So when they establish some comparisons, many times or oftentimes they're going to compare a human being with an animal. Or and this, of course, in some cultures is very offensive. You cannot tell someone es una rata, right? Or es un conejo. This is all in, very could be very offensive. You'd say someone, ella es una coneja. What you're telling the person is that they're reproducing themselves out of control. and that's sexual, even sexual in nature. So you're offensive. You're telling someone that they are a rat. What you're telling them is that they have this low class behavior without any class, right? This a horrible animal that is murderous and all that, right? Sabotages everywhere. So we cannot tell someone they're animals. We have to be careful. However, some expressions must be incorporated in our repertoire. Here we have some of them that can help you explain yourself better and appropriately. So we have the eager beaver, right? Hardworking, enthusiastic person. Okay. Take a look. She's the eager beaver who always volunteers first, right? We all have that kind of people, either as co-workers or classmates, right? They're always there. We have the eager beaver everywhere, right? There are people like that. In Spanish culture, that could be offensive because we could be saying something else. How would you translate someone's an eager beaver? Let's say you're translating a document or you're interpreting from someone coming from the States, just as an example, and they say that Juan, of course, was an eager beaver. How could you put that? How could you phrase that in Spanish without
Juan,
harming or hurting?
Juan is it's a workaholic, could be.
In Spanish? No, we need to render in Spanish.
In Spanish, okay.
Podría ser
Pero-
fulanito de tal es extremadamente trabajador.
Yeah, but you see, now we are trying to go the other way. You see, turning something that is an animal comparison or comparison to an animal into something very, very positive.
Okay.
Yeah, we could say that. Voluntarioso, trabajador, cooperador, like people want to say all the time, like él es cooperador, ella es cooperadora. Like to put it, but what they're not trying to say is that this person is really someone who's working for his or her interest. And
well, in
we see.
Spanish could be, in Spanish could be, ella es una hormiguita trabajando.
Very good, very good. You see, there we go. All right, all right. So we run into an animal category that does not insult, right? That is not pejorative or offensive. There we go. There we go. And there could be others. There could be many others. Of course, of course. Thank you very much. Ella es una hormiguita. Very good. That everything is implied and it's not negative. You don't have anything negative about hormigas, right? But you cannot say "Ella es una cucaracha," right? Because that's
And
another
that
kind of insult.
changes, right? And
That's
that
very
changes.
offensive, right? So in general, animal or metaphors that involve animals are a big no-no in Spanish. Okay? Take a look at BCB. Someone always active and working. He's a BCB. Juggling, sorry, 3 projects at once. We also have the lone wolf, person who prefers being independent. She's a lone wolf who likes working solo. Right? You have the black sheep, an odd or disapproved family member. He's the black sheep of the family, always in trouble, top dog, the leader, most powerful person. So also the alpha, some people say. So he wants to be the top dog in the office. But you know, there are some connotations to some of these expressions, right? Being a black sheep, that could be taken as an insult. Yes, some people take it with.
The image you have there, it's a white sheep, though. How strange.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. And the Savior is represented in the scripture as white sheep, as white sheep. So yeah, we have to be careful with these comparisons,
Right.
right? Because the black sheep,
Exactly.
that's like you're the devil. You're telling
Yeah,
them that
no.
this man is like the devil, or this woman is like the devil.
Especially
Okay, very
because
good. We have, yeah, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, especially because there are some terms that can turn to be discriminatory, and we cannot. So here, pragmatics comes from how to say things and what would be the best word to be used according to the situation in order not to get into those conflicts.
Yeah, very good. So true. Guinea pig, okay? Person used for testing or experiments. I felt like a guinea pig, right? Trying out the new app. So yeah, eh, that's a victim's language because a guinea pig is someone who decides or enjoys being used for some kind of an experiment, right? So no one is forcing them, but the expression is, language that is not sometimes very, very good to use, especially when you're describing someone, right? Nobody wants to be a victim or that people think that you're a victim. Cash cow. So a steady source of profit. That product of a company is a cash cow, right? It's a cash cow.
Gallinita de los huevos de oro.
Right, exactly. And this is another animal comparison coming from literature, from fictional character. Yeah, this is it. And we're trying to soften that condition of being a provider because some people tend to feel that they're being used when they're referred to as the source of income or the source of goods. A dark horse, someone with hidden talents who surprises others. Or the red herring, that's another one I've heard also in English, American English. Uh, so she was the dark horse who won the competition, a copycat, someone who imitates others. So it's a negative thing. It's a very negative thing. Don't be a copycat, make your own design. Cold fish, person who feels unemotional, who seems unemotional. He acted like a cold fish during the breakup, right? We have a rat race, stressful, competitive way. The rat race, she left the corporate rat race for simpler lifestyle. A white elephant, something costly but useless. The stadium became the white elephant after the event, right?
White elephant, we're using the translation elefante blanco, y me acuerdo que eso se usó mucho con el Hospital Santo Tomás cuando se hizo por allá por los años 1900 algo, ¿no? Porque veían que era algo muy costoso y que quizás pues no se iba a usar tanto, pero bueno, la vida dio otras vueltas.
So my question is, you see that reveals a lot about the way of thinking of our leaders. Leadership in Panama, they are disconnected from reality. They don't think population is going to grow. They don't think young people need jobs. They don't think the university needs more branches. They think people don't need water. They don't think you need electricity. They don't think you need internet. They think you are like a wildling out there that you need to survive. That's what they think of. And then they want to ask for people's vote. So I think this country was never prepared for a real democracy. That's the situation here. Because how could you call a hospital a white elephant? You could refer to that, from you say that about a stadium, say that about some other useless, quote unquote useless structure. But hospitals and schools, they could never be thought as such. So this reveals what this Panamanian leadership is all about, disconnected from reality. They don't understand anything and they won't. And I think they have proven that they haven't and they won't. It's very serious. So imagine a hospital is a white elephant. Who would think such an ignorant thing? So imagine populations grow, country grows, there is progress, or should we go backwards? So this is very serious. Now, on the other side, we have other expressions. Take a look. Riding the tiger. Okay, so managing a dangerous situation that you cannot safely abandon. So when you refer to the tiger, it's something that is threatening, is something serious, something that deserves your full attention. Take a look at milking the bull. That she was milking the bull. So wasting effort on something impossible or fundamentally unworkable, right? You can milk a cow, but not the bull, right? And this is an expression. How would you translate this into Spanish? Say let's say that an ambassador is saying that we were milking the bull as we try to advance a project or whatever. So how will you say that in Spanish? You would never say something like estábamos ordeñando el toro because people are gonna laugh at that. That's gonna be laughable matter for real, and that would go to the newspapers everywhere, right? So you cannot say anything like that. So translators or interpreters' job is to try to produce something that is reasonable, right? And that reasonably communicates the meaning. So what would be milking the bull to you? Anybody?
Aquí sería utilizado más como el desperdiciar el esfuerzo o el talento in the case of milking the bull.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be very, very decent. Very decent. Okay.
Echar polvo sobre gallinazo, would that be like?
Well, that'll be understood in that part of Panama because believe it, in capital Panama, people don't understand echarle polvo al gallinazo. I know what you mean. Gastar pólvora en gallote probably could be a possible rendering, right? Others? Could you think of others? So now you know, all right? Milking the bull, riding the tiger. Take a look, a paper tiger. Something that appears threatening but lacks real power. Donald Trump, when the second round of attacks began in Iran, he said that the European Union and the NATO, they were a paper tiger. Okay, I listened to one of his press conferences, and he said that, and well, there was silence among media because this is heavy. This is heavy. What do you think would be a translation for a paper tiger? How would you interpret that? Don't tell me that you would say that era un tigre de papel because to Latin Americans or to Spanish background people, that doesn't mean anything. Un tigre de papel, what does that mean? How could you put that in Spanish?
Es como bla, 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 pero es like eso es puro bla, bla, bla.
Sí, fanfarrón.
Very good. Yeah, very good. But people speak like this, and we have to find equivalences.
Yes.
And we need to do our best, right, to present this under the best possible light. Sometimes it's just not possible, right? So chasing the white elephant. Yes, go ahead, please. Sorry.
Some of them are very sarcastic, right? As milk and the bull, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
milking a bull, exactly.
For
Ordeñando
example.
al toro. Could you imagine that? There is no way we could say that. And we have to be very mindful. We cannot translate word for word. This is avoiding the trap to translate word for word that you read at the beginning of the seminar. You cannot do that. You have to go from meaning to meaning. And then you have to filter a lot of that meaning, because if you go literally, you're going to ruin the whole thing.
Yes. Or for example, a paper tiger also could be perro que ladra no muerde. Something could be.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because it's threat lacks real power.
Right. You
Or
could say la OTAN es un perro que ladra pero no muerde. Okay. That's very serious. That's offensive.
yes, yes, it
Because they're
is.
full of weapons, and supposedly they're defending Europe from Russia and all that, and they have a defensive role with a multi-millionaire budget. They're full of rockets and weaponries and submarines and everything, and then on top we're telling them that they're perro que ladra no muerde. So that's very offensive for those Europeans. That's why Donald Trump is getting himself in trouble also, because no one dares to shut up this man, because sometimes he should shut up. Really, that's
Yeah.
part of his problem right now.
In
They
the
have tried to kill him like 10 times right now. The last murder attempt was at a golf course in California. I've been following that. That happened like, I don't know, maybe like 5 days ago. They found someone with a long weapon trying to
Wow.
shoot
I
him
do
shoot
believe
him
those
in the
are
head.
self-attacks. Well,
What do you?
I found out that for paper tiger, that's a cock from in linguistics. It's a cock from Chinese, actually. It comes from Chinese, and it's a loan word or expression that indicates not being difficult or not being risky. We're offering no challenge. That's the meaning would be that.
Yeah, it's like saying un perro sin dientes. It's a paper tiger. It's like all they do is say, but they don't act, or they don't have the nerve or the spine to act. That's what it is implied, right? Okay. Now look at chasing the white elephant, pursuing a costly burden that brings more trouble than benefit. Okay, it's like working for an ideal, but something that is not very rewarding, not rewarding. Feeding the crocodile, trying to appease someone in hopes they harm you last. It's like they're gonna kill you anyway, but then you're trying to keep them happy, regardless of, right. All of that applies to many situations, right, that we see, right, at present. The wolf at the doors, like imminent financial hardship or serious pressure. It's like imminent threats, right, of different nature, could be military, political, economic, so forth. Even violence, right? A sacred cow, so person or idea immune from criticisms despite flaws, right? The sacred cows of Vashon, that comes from literature, and well, those are the privileged people, right?
Yes, las vacas sagradas.
Yes, exactly. Very good. Very good. Very good. And all of this is very funny, but this is all very offensive once it's directed to us or to someone we care about. It's okay to say this if we don't care about that person, but
Which
if
is
this is towards someone we care or against ourselves, then
right,
this
but
is serious.
right. Here in this case also, it has a cultural reference or register because vacas sagradas or a sacred cow implies the Hindu culture where the cows or the cattle are sacred, yeah, due to their religious and spiritual traditions.
Right, right. Yeah, thank you for that cultural note. Thank you. This is a good observation. Because the Hindus, they're hungry, but they don't eat um, meat, right? They're vegetarian, so they'd rather starve than sacrifice a god, right? Which is a cow. Very
Well,
good.
for people like us, that would be actually not rational. Probably we would not understand. But spiritually or religiously, the way their culture tends to interpret that, it's different. For them, well, they will be fed on other things and not necessarily on meat, which they consider it to rotten the soul.
Very good.
Well,
So,
vacas sagradas also, whenever we refer to a person that we cannot move for different reasons, then we say, well, they are vacas sagradas, forget about that.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, that's social standing or status and so forth. These are careful topics to refer to because they could be very they could be spark, a serious disagreement or problem. Look at, for example, here counting sheep in daylight. So we're supposed to count sheep in our sleep at nighttime when human beings go to bed. But when you are doing it in daylight, counting sheep in daylight is worrying needlessly, right? Because of something that does not exist.
Daydreaming.
Right. Counting sheep in daylight is worrying over something that does not yet, at least not yet, deserves attention. Letting the fox guard a hen house. Okay. That's something like giving responsibility to someone likely to abuse it. El amigo del ratón, el queso es el amigo del ratón, or so forth. That kind of expression captures that relationship. So it refers to corruption. It's all about corruption. So we have an albatross around the neck, a persistent burden that weighs someone's down. I think that's not very common. I think this is probably the third time I've seen an albatross around the neck. But I have seen and also heard people say when pigs fly, right? Something unlikely. Something
Right.
unlikely.
Never happen. Right. It will
Yeah,
never
something
happen.
unlikely. Like herding cats, right? Attempting to organize people who resist direction or controls, like herding cats. But you herd sheep, but you cannot herd cats because cats they're unruly. They have unruly behavior, right? So you cannot herd any cats. They abandon you and they adopt you and they do whatever they want. I don't know why they call it a domestic animal because I don't think it is really. A lone wolf in a pack, someone who appears part of a group but acts independently. A lone wolf in a pack, right? To saddle a dead horse, right? So you would saddle a live horse so that you will ride it and go places, but a dead horse, it's pointless. So it's investing in a failed strategy. An elephant never forgets. There's someone who remembers past actions or mistakes for a long time, right? Crying wolf in the storm, raising alarms, unnecessary, right? When the real warnings, um, when they come, will be ignored. Like a caged lion, feeling powerful but restricted, clutching at feathers, holding on to weak excuses or fragile justifications. Swimming with sharks at low tide, competing in a hostile environment where risks are amplified, right? Okay, very good. So, okay, I think this is an interesting section of today's presentation. Uh, I have other images that expand this a little bit further, but at 10 to 10 right now, I would like to ask for a brief break, and then we'll come back at 10:05. I just need confirmation from seminar organizers, Professor Randy or Marisol.
Well, yes, that will be okay. Yeah. No.
Okay, very good. So we'll be resuming at 10:05.
See you later.
Sí.
Right. So coming back to our topics, I would like to just say that this metaphors usually come by for writing and speaking, because sometimes we're looking for the right phrase or expression that could refer to a human being without being offensive or anything. Here we have quite a few of those, right? Quite a few of those are very useful. It's okay to refer to a person as an ox, but not as a donkey, right? And that kind of thing. It's very important that we are careful, right? Very good. So we have some metaphors of different nature here. Some categories of metaphors are presented to you here. We have common metaphors, business metaphors. Just a few examples over here. Digital age ones that it's always a good thing to bear in mind what people say at present, and cultural variations also. Some that coming from other from uh, international relations and many countries interconnected, right? So common metaphors: BC as a bee for hardworking. This is good. A social butterfly for a person who's outgoing. That this is okay to say a person is a butterfly. Even though you know that in Latino culture, butterfly for a man, that's no. Okay, that don't say that about a man. That's offensive, right? So you have to be careful. We have to be careful and aware of this. So I don't think a man American men would like you to refer to them as a butterfly. That's offensive. Night owl is a late worker. Everybody, I think, should acknowledge this. Wolf in sheep's clothing. Wolf in sheep's clothing. That's a deceiver, right? Quick as a fox, right? That has to do with being sharp as a tack, right? Someone who's very intelligent, very savvy, knowledgeable. Business metaphors commonly used of sorts. So we have the corporate jungle, right? It's a competitive environment. The shark, it's an aggressive competitor. An alpha wolf, that's a strong leader, or maybe or just alpha. Sometimes it's that's positive and that's okay. I think for a man, but for a woman, I'm not so sure. We couldn't say that she's an alpha. I don't know if that is okay or not. If they would take it positively, uh, we have to inquire, right, and double check. Dark horse. This is unexpected success. That's what a dark horse is. Something that no one expected. Cash cow. It's a reliable profit source. This is positive. But I don't think it's a positive thing to say about a person. Digital age metaphors. We have a keyboard warrior. Okay? That's an online arguer, someone who is in the blog arena or of sorts. I don't know, exchanging comments and opinions, arguing. Twitter birds. Okay, now Twitter is no longer available. So for social posters, I don't know what could replace a Twitter bird. We don't have birds anymore because Twitter doesn't exist. That's the reason why. So probably it's a, X commenters or something like that. It could be. I don't know. Instagram peacock, self promoter, right? Someone who is doing business and business oriented. Digital hamster wheel. That's an endless scroll. That's you should know, right? Well, like when we see on TikTok that video after video they start flowing. They say it's legal in the European Union now to present information like that, especially for teenagers. That now they're establishing an age requirement for people who have a TikTok account or social media account in many countries. Sorry, because as it seems, endless scrolling affects human beings' perception, cognition. Notification squirrel. someone who is distracted. That one I haven't seen ever, but it's worth looking into, right? A notification squirrel, someone distracted. Very interesting. Okay, we have some cultural variations over there that are worth looking at. We have dragon, so successful like dragon economies, right? It's like from China. The koi that's a perseverance coming from Japan. I don't know, or I'm not sure how they would use word koi in context. It's worth looking into as well, just like notification squirrel. Owl for wisdom, probably foolishness, right? Two extremes of a continuum here. A tiger mom, strict parent, and a bear market is an economic decline. You know that the market can be a bull, can be a bear. It's usually animals that are used for description of actions or describing people's qualities or something like the market, right? Could be bearish, could be bullish, and so forth. I'm talking about the stock market, right? Okay, before I go away, I'd just like to ask you if you've ever seen any of these expressions before, and if you have any anecdote or testimony on how you have handled them, uh, either for interpretation or explanation or for discussion.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Sure, Professor Lucy, go ahead, please.
Yes. Um, when I discovered that Profesora Berta Alicia Cheng, I think she's a translator also, and she has many books of expressions in English and Spanish. So when I discovered that book, I started to change my mind over this because sometimes when I began translating, I did it like literally. And it was very funny and it looked funny because it was like, what am I saying here? I was not sure. But since I talked to her and she says, no, but there are many, what we're talking about before, not internet, but before having all these resources in internet, she had that book, and she's continuously updating the expressions book in Spanish and English. So I have the collection now and now we can find it in internet, no? But I still have the collection of books because I found them very good for this purpose, no? Of understanding another culture. And she has done a very good work about it. Thank you.
Yeah, that is exactly the idea that we gather all of this information and put it down somewhere. So many people have lots of experience, but they don't write anything of what they have lived, and then lots of that information is lost because well, it's always a good thing to read what others have accomplished or what they have done or solutions they have found. Because remember, we're constantly talking about problems here, problems for the translator, because communication is always going to happen, and the same limitations will always occur. But if someone has found some solution that needs to be shared and given out, okay. If there aren't any other comments, I'm going to continue a little bit beyond and refer to some literary examples here. Okay, if you look at this here, for example, we have a Moby Dick. You see, the whale from Nature's Force. Any of the literature professors would know that Neville, right, the author of Moby Dick's novel, of course, presented this animal as symbolic of nature that is out of control. We think we control nature, but nature controls us in the end. The Animal Farm for a political metaphor, right? Who wrote Animal Farm? Anybody? Especially the literature staff. Anybody who would tell
George
us?
Orwell. George
Oh
Orwell.
yeah, Orwell.
Although it
Thank you
is
very
not my
much.
subject.
Excellent. So this is a satirical story, in which there's a lot of betrayal and dishonesty and selfishness. All of this is political, right? This is politics. To Kill a Mockingbird. This is all about innocence. So, who wrote that? Who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird? Any of the staff who could
Harper
help
Lee.
me? Okay, very good. All right. And finally, Othello, right? In which the image of the spider for deception, right? This is from William Shakespeare, if I'm not wrong. And well, these are some of the kinds of metaphors or metaphoric symbolism that appears in writing and speaking as people refer to nature, politics, innocence, and deception. Okay, they could say someone is a spider. Okay. Um, I think well, one of my kids was asking me, so why is it that Spider-Man cannot take off the mask? Well, I said that because the mask is his power. This is the way he deceives the crime world in order to fight for justice. So this is a metaphor of hiding hiding things. So a spider is an animal that hunts through spider web, right? You don't know it's hunting, but it is there. You think it's weaving, but it's not weaving. It's setting up a trap. So that's what we know about the spiders. So spiders are generally um, very deceitful animals, right? And here, for example, in Mockingbird, I don't see that very often anymore because in this world, which is very cynical, we don't speak of innocence very often. But yeah, I probably have read about it once or so. Okay, I'm going to move on to usage tips on metaphors. So professional, uh, you know, we use eagle-eyed for detail oriented. That's to mean that someone is very professional. He's an eagle-eyed supervisor, eagle-eyed manager, eagle-eyed faculty member, so forth. Someone with a great vision. It's a very positive thing to say about a person. It's a positive quality. So creative is move like a gazelle. So someone who does things in a way that is effective and prompt. Speaking, don't be an ostrich for avoidance. Okay, so for this animal is a biped bird that hides from trouble by hiding its head on the floor and leaving the body out. For writing, have a heart like a hummingbird for excitement, right? Being very honest and open when you're expressing and so forth. So yeah, and here is an interesting note. So we use animal metaphors according to this source, 4.3 times per 1,000 words in everyday speech. So metaphoric language is necessary to relate to reality. Because remember that what we know now is that we create reality as we speak. What we speak is intended to be true, or we want to say this is true based on our perception. If we don't say something or we don't speak a name, it doesn't exist. So this is coming from latest advances in the understanding of awareness and reality. So metaphors are like an anchor to reality. That's what they are. Okay, so we have proverbs, see, many proverbs that are worth the time. Uh, Many of them are sayings also. They fall in these two categories. Many of them are also metaphors, and they fall under metaphor or simile, and other figures of speech that, as I was explaining just a very short while ago, are intended to ground a, a, what we say on reality. We're trying to communicate our reality to other people through our words, through our language. So look at how animals are also communicated or used for communication. Curiosity killed a cat. A give a dog a bad name and hang it. Okay. Um, so it's like creating an expectation about someone. In psychology, if I'm not mistaken, that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, that you say something about something negative maybe about someone, and the person's gonna do it anyway. Okay, let sleeping dogs lie. So not to make animals bark, right? Birds of a feather flock together, more of the same. The early bird catches the worm, while the cat's away, the mice will play. A bird in the hand is worth two in a bush. Barking dogs seldom bite. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. A leopard cannot change its spots. Never look a gift horse in the mouth, and one swallow doesn't make a summer. So all these are commonly used in everyday interactions, and they're part of our repertoire. And if we don't use them, we should use them more often, in order to be more natural. Some other animal words that don't refer to animals anymore. So what we're referring to is people here. A hound, it said reporters hounded the actor for answers. So it's used as a verb here. Right? So badgers, like she kept badgering him to finish the task, to annoy, right? Cowed, intimidated, frightened. He felt cowed by a strict supervisor. To squirrel away or chicken out, same, also another animal. She squirreled away extra money for emergencies. Monkey, oh, sorry, in this case, squirrel away is more like, say, putting away for later. Not chicken out, that'll be a different thing. Monkey around is to behave in a playful way, stop monkeying around. To whistle out, it's like to avoid taking responsibilities, tend to be looked down on as inappropriate behavior. He tried to whistle out of the agreement. Leech, to take advantage of someone, right? They warn him about people who leech off his kindness. To wolf down, to eat something very quickly, he wolfed down his lunch. Ferret out, to discover, uncover something hidden. Detective ferreted out the truth. Fish for, to try subtly get something, usually praise on information. He was fishing for compliments, something that you're trying to obtain. Okay, so yeah, here this one, I think it's not very, I don't know, I hope it's clear, but we have some sayings that are actually metaphors, right? Are actually metaphors. Many of them are part of everyday communication. That's why they're here on this slide, and they are here in this seminar. So look at those, and it's always good to remember. Time is money, right? Love is a battlefield. He's a night owl. He has a heart of stone. Life is a roller coaster, the world's stage. He's walking on thin ice. It's raining cats and dogs. She's the shining star of the class. He's drowning in work. You're my sunshine. My memory is a bit foggy. He's a snake. She's an open book. The classroom was a zoo, right? The words cut deep. You're the light of my life. He exploded with anger. She's fishing for compliments. His ideas are seeds. The test was a breeze. He's in the driver's seat. She broke my heart. City never sleeps. He's a pillar of a community. She spilled the beans. He's got cold feet. You're skating on thin ice. She's a ray of hope, and he's burning the candle at both ends. Okay? So many of them are good to remember because they're part of what we normally do. As I'm saying, this kind of language, what it does is that it anchors language to reality. That's what you do. Because when you compare some idea or something that is, ethereal to something physical, what you're doing is that you're grounding your language in reality. You're being very specific, very concrete. You're precise, trying to be more precise than if you were just argumenting emptily. Okay. I decided to bring this photo of Mildred Larson, right? Mildred Larson. I don't know if you remember her, but from module 2, she was one of the people responsible. And the reason why she's here is because she died fairly recently in 2020. She passed. And she is one of the most important theorists of translation. Most of the translation theories based at present based on Mildred Larson's work, same as Eugene Nida and some other major thinkers and philosophers or linguists who have contributed to the understanding of the translation process. So Larson is here because she's the one who devised or designed how we could proceed and coin useful metaphors and comparisons when we are referring to subject matters across languages. Larson has several useful techniques for dealing with metaphors. The first is a three-step process by which metaphors is changed into symbols using the words as or like. Following this, the comparison is made explicit to avoid any possible misunderstanding. Now, going back to the ox metaphor, it would go like English metaphor, John is an ox. The symbol would be John is like an ox, right? The explicit symbol, John is as strong as an ox. The explicit equivalent symbol, John es tan fuerte como un caballo. So, considering that in Gaucho, Argentine Spanish, this is a dumb animal. It would be offensive. So horse is chosen because it's a more honorable animal to compare person to, right? So the Spanish symbol will go more into John es como un caballo, the metaphor, John es un caballo. But that, of course, cannot be taken out of context, right? That has to be within the context of a human description. The second approach is a 5-step hierarchy. Keep the metaphor if the target language permits. 2, if not, change it to a simile and translate. 3, as an alternate, a different metaphor in the target language may be selected if it has the same dynamic impact. This is something that goes under the judgment of a translator's judgment. Or the metaphor may be kept and the meaning explained. And 5, finally, the meaning of a metaphor may be translated without keeping the image of a metaphor or symbol. So all of this is a step-by-step process. And once more, we could elaborate on the example. Juan es un buey. This is not good because of different images attributed to a buey, right? Juan es tan fuerte como un buey. Better, but still not good enough because although we made explicit the strength of the animal, there are other less desirable features of the buey in Spanish. Juan es un caballo. Good solution using a different metaphor. Juan es un buey porque el buey es un animal fuerte. Possible but awkward. Juan es fuerte. We kept the meaning but lost the imagery. That's another possibility. So you see, we don't speak about something being right or wrong. We convey messages, but what we need to do is be careful about how to make it better. Okay, it is all good, but better. That's the ideal, and better is considering factors such as being something appropriate, not awkward, respectful, and so forth. So there are matters that are involved in this. One last piece of advice for a translator dealing with a metaphor is see if the solution works. So does it achieve the same dynamic equivalent effect? This is something we need to be careful about. We should like it because we know the expression is widely accepted. This is important. If it does not, then we should proceed down Larson's scale of choices. Until the solution is found that works, right? The higher up the scale the solution stays, the more elegant and effective the translation will be. But the ultimate criteria that remains, if it doesn't work, don't use it, right? Because we don't want to create miscommunication or noise in the process. The process is already complicated enough as to create noise. So here once more, I'm going to recap quickly here on the difference between a simile and a metaphor. A simile is the one that compares two things using like or as. It appears as apostrophe s here, but it's like or as. For example, her smile is as bright as the sun, as bright as the sun. That like or as takes away or separates the person from the quality we're referring to. This is a simile. The metaphor is personifying. It compares two things directly. Her smile is the sun. Okay. Her smile is the sun. This is to some extent some poetic language. So metaphor is creative language in action. The simile is simply referring to, being, referring to something. We have another case here on simile. BC as a bee. I am busy as a bee. So how are you busy as a bee? The metaphor would be my nephew is a cuddly baby bear. Okay. So what you're saying is you are comparing. You have to be careful what you're going to compare baby to, right? If you think stuffed animal, like a baby bear, stuffed cuddly baby bear is beautiful, that's okay. But if people don't like those animals, then you have to be careful about what kind of metaphor you're going to be saying, because that could be offensive. So we don't want noise. That's the idea, is that there shouldn't be any noise in a metaphor. Noise is creating discomfort, offending someone, not being very accurate, making people uncomfortable, or misleading the reader, confusing the listener, so on. Okay, this is very colorful here, all right? And
Yes.
the reason why this is here is because we need to talk about figurative language. Since we're starting, with all this on metaphors and similes, we're also forced to refer to this very briefly. I will not invest a lot of time into this. Now, in the graduate master in our master's degree in translation, there is a course named Stylistics into Spanish Language, and there is another one named Stylistics into English Language. The way the programs were developed or created included for stylistics a great deal of this, because stylistics is not about the style you write, or the guidelines or stylistic guides that you'll follow for a genre. No, it's more about using language creatively. That's what it is, stylistics, really. So from a translation perspective, it's very important for us to bear in mind that different kinds of figures of speech, which are like phenomenon we need to live with, right? The most common ones, as we see here, are simile, a metaphor, an oxymoron, hyperbole, idiom, personification, symbolism, alliteration, onomatopoeia, and puns. All right. So, and there are many more because I've seen a much more extensive list, and the list goes as much as 25. So, what I'm presenting here are probably the better knowns. On the right, the image on the right, I think explains it in simpler terms, simpler. So let's stick to the one on the right. So we read here the simile. She is as brave as a lion, right? Comparison using like or as. A metaphor for direct comparison. Time is a thief, right? I'm being stolen by time, so time is a thief. Personification, that'll be given human qualities to non-human things. So the wind whispered through the trees. Of course, winds don't whisper; they just blow. The wind blows. But when we say whispered, then we are personifying. We, you understand the concept, right? Turning something not in nature as a human-like. Alliteration, so repetition of a word, right? For the sake of creating an effect of repetition. So Peter Piper picked a peck and pickled peppers. So that is alliteration. Is uh, altering the prosody for aesthetics. We want to repeat something, and that is using language for a purpose. That's alliteration. Onomatopoeia. Well, we have words from nature that are, English is very onomatopoeic, not Spanish, right? Spanish is more artistic. But in English, you have words such as this, splash, bang, buzz, and many others that they all come from sounds in nature. So not only that, the list is endless. Hyperbole is an exaggeration. So I've told you a million times, of course, it's not possible to say something a million times, but this is an exaggeration. Oxymorons are two opposite words together. So deafening silence. So, silence doesn't say anything because it's it's a void. There is nothing in silence. But deafening, you start listening to some zooming sound inside your ears when the silence is complete. So that is why, for example, some people can't stand some places where there is absolute silence because that's deafening also. Why is that? Because we live through our senses. Ever since we were babies, this is how we survived as a human being, through our senses. So white noise and some level of noise is necessary for our brain to change its state and change the waves, and then we'll go into from alpha to delta and so forth, and then we go into rest mode uh, or sleeping mode. But that is going to come from what we get from the environment. So you cannot sleep when you have absolute silence. That's deafening, and noise can't let you sleep either. So you need like some combination of some input going around you, right? You're gonna obtain. So irony, opposite of what is expected. A fire station burns down, right? That's an ironic thing because it's a place that's supposed to fight fire. So putting out fires is their business. How come it's burning? So it's like horrible or ironic. Pun. It's a play on words, right? So sometimes it's comedy, right? A bicycle can't stand on its own because it's too tired, right? You see that you're saying that when someone is tired, they can't stand because they need to sit on the floor. But the reality is that this transportation means, which is a bicycle, has two tires. So there is this language play over here. And it is funny also. So there is this the double meaning, right? Double speak. The apostrophe is addressing an absent person. and that's a person or an object. So, oh, how I miss you. Okay. Uh, but then you don't say who you miss, right? Or what you miss. It's like for instance, you don't want to drink alcohol anymore, but then all of a sudden on a Friday evening you say, "Oh, how I miss you," right? What do you miss? Well, you don't want to say what it is, but it's a bottle of wine or some alcoholic or some spirit, right? You want some spirit because you got used to that, right? That's the case. Okay, we need to continue talking about idiomatic expressions because it's serious business. In for example, at the English department, what my experience has been that our students learn them along the way. As they have, they learn more and more. It's also important to provide some input that comes out of textbooks because books don't display much on idioms because it's a different kind of language. That's the written grammar, but the spoken grammar is something students need to they'll get involved in. And for example, in courses like oral expression, out of which I teach sometimes. I what I do is I bring in content and modules, either out of transcriptions or audio material for students to listen. And over there, I start establishing the difference between written grammar and spoken grammar is loaded with the untranslatable because this is where the culture is first communicated. Remember that ever since we're children, what we receive from our parents or our elderly was stories. Stories. All these stories, what they do is they communicate culture, content, values, stories. Stories of what? Of the people, of situations, of proper behavior, all of that. So, and all of this is communicated in a way that is simplified because speaking cannot be uh, so lengthy or so long, especially for children who have a very limited attention span. Child cannot listen to a conference for 2 hours, 3 hours like we do here at this level. So what you're going to communicate to them has to be simplified. And there is where all of these elements of proverbs and idiomatic expressions and the metaphoric language and the cognates are going to go in because you need some easy and fast solution to communication. And then you're going to resort to whatever is easier, right? Or whatever is being repeated. And so that people understand it, even though we could be making a couple of mistakes along the way. So there is more flexibility in the spoken grammar and spoken lexicon. Not that it differs from the written lexicon, but since I've had to stand between 240 and 340, which are um, written grammar oriented, and then I also have to teach uh, oral expression, then I also have my other foot on uh, spoken grammar. And this is a completely different topic, and it deserves our attention. Many of our students benefit a lot from exposure to these other elements because, well, for a second language speaker, it's generally a disadvantage that we lack the cultural element. So anything that complements or supplements the absence of culture in communication is very useful. So audios, transcriptions, conversations, podcasts, um, TED Talks, whatever it is that comes through our ears or is supplemented, through reading and ears and listening is very good. Actually, I need to say here that personally, I would recommend our oral expression courses to be called also oral expression and listening comprehension, because this is a part of how to unlock the ability to speak. Say, the more you listen and the more you understand, the better your speaking will become. And this is another level of communication. right? So idiomatic expressions have special meanings derived from the cultures they come from. Again, I think this is one major point in our seminar, avoiding the word for word translation trap. When translated word for word, they can be either meaningless, seem foreign, or create other problems. So this is misleading and confusing. We should not go for any word for word concerning idioms. I mean, in terms of translation. For example, the idiomatic expression, give me a light, for a cigarette cannot be translated for deme luz, because there's very close idiomatic expression, dar luz. That's, everybody knows. That's how we come in, right? The world, giving birth. The most appropriate expression, deme fuego. Okay. English tends to use a lot of compound words, which are a form of idiom. Spanish resists this trend and instead requires prepositions to tie various noun strings together or coins a new word. Idiomatic expressions are hard to deal because they must memorize or looked up as idioms and not separate words and specialized or special dictionaries. So they're always a challenge. They're always a challenge. So here we have a couple of them. I would recommend you to take a look at them, and I'm going to ask you some questions about them, okay? Let's invest at least 3 minutes looking at them, and then some questions will come. Okay, in this list, not all all the idiomatic expressions belong to a specific and concrete spoken grammar category of words such as move on, look up, look at, move in, get up, get off, take away, etc. No, idiomatic is more encompassing. It's a larger, broader category. Okay, they're also referred as idiomatic as well. And the thing is that sometimes they're grouped around certain topics. Okay, looking at the first one, we find a similar phenomenon to the one that we were referring to before. Remember that, of course, we have some metaphors based on animals, on animal or object comparison. That's the left image. In the middle, we have idiomatic comparisons or expressions that refer to the weather. And the last one has to do with um, human feelings or human behavior, right? So how have you learned your share of idioms? Because everybody here is an advanced user of English. How have you learned them? How have you approached this topic for yourself? I mean, not to teach others, but what have you done in order to learn some of these?
Well, I learned mine living in an English-speaking community. Going to school with native, you learn a lot. So this is how I learned mine.
Thank you very much.
In my case, it's been through reading, definitely. Definitely.
Right. We always learn out of exposure, from other people's speech. And media is also very useful. If you listen to English a lot, you will learn the most common ones because many of them are just not very, very common. Okay. Some of them, like a couch potato, early bird, night owl, probably those are more common than to say that someone is, for example, there is blood on thunder, or to steal someone's thunder, right? Those are probably less common. And for example, to go down in flames, that's something that needs to be analyzed because, of course, to go down is negative, but in flames, they say spectacularly. So you see, that reflects a different set of values about that culture because it's like you fail in a spectacular way. That's we don't have anything equivalent in Spanish, right? You could have some success, or you could succeed, but you would never mock or make fun of failure, right? So this is something to be aware of. Once in a blue moon, something that happens rarely, and snug as a bug in a rug. So you see there the element of repetition that we were referring to before. That is useful in language communication. Snowball's chance in hell, all wet, and there are many others here. How about spit into the wind? Wasting time on something futile, right? Maybe you've seen it, maybe you misunderstood the meaning,
Waste time.
It's waste of time, exactly. Something that we do without an effort. I mean, it's a useless effort. That's what it means exactly. Okay. So, do you have any comments concerning these idioms? Now we know that they belong to different categories, right? There is a spoken grammar category and the phrasal verbs from the British counterparts. They call it. They don't have this expression as idioms. They have more like phrasal verbs in their books coming from that part of the world. But from American books or textbooks and resources, they refer to idioms or idiomatic expressions as a spoken grammar category. But the category is larger because it involves, as you can see here, some sayings, some proverbs, and so on. Do you have any comments? How do you approach culture in your classroom? How do you approach culture in your classroom? How do you teach culture? If you attempt to do so, what do you do?
Oh, I took your seminar last time about culture and language. So I have been applying some of the. I've been using some bibliography to show them, but there are two sites that I like a lot. One is the BBC English Learning website or something, and the other one is Voice of America. So we have been watching videos and discussing what happens in an English language culture. That's very interesting for them. For example, how do they greet people, like in in North America or in British countries or cultures. Sorry. So I've been also learning that because I've never lived in an English speaking country. I just have the reference from my teachers and from movies or books or whatever. So we try to discuss that with students in a way that they can also tell in the class what they think that is happening in a conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And yeah, many of them, especially at the English department, they claim that they want to be translators. Eh, yeah, we have to direct them to culture because that is exactly what they lack, right? The cultural element, and that is what people uh, ignore. That for a good translator to be competent and efficient in their work, they need to understand very much. They need to understand a lot, right? So it's very serious. It's very serious as a topic. Okay, very good. I'm moving on. We have some other over here that I would like just to present to you. Yeah, more holes than Swiss cheese. Or let the cat out of the bag, or spill the beans to have a cow, right? Right. A different kettle of fish. That's a different topic, right? Barking up the wrong tree. Cat got your tongue. When pigs fly, kick the bucket by the bullet. All of them are part of a repertoire that need to be enriched, right? Many of those concerning daily activities too, like crash a party, being there without being invited, right? Un paracaidista, right? But we don't have that kind of social party anymore, at least not that often after the pandemic. So many of them have become outdated, and people don't speak about crashing a party anymore. Hit the books, hint touch, honor roll, like have a tough roll to hoe, right? Play with fire, trip the light, fantastic spin a yarn, ring a bell, right? And there are way many others, right? Way many others. Well, the counterpart to this is Spanish, right? In Spanish, we have quite a few of these expressions as well, right? Depending on the context, then they're the subject, they're the necessary subject of study. El hábito no hace al monje, okay? Okay, take a look at that one at the bottom. Okay, I'm trying to move this ruler. So don't judge a book by its cover, right? And money does not last for fools. So a fool and his money are soon parted. Look at, for example, borra con el codo lo que escribe con la mano. So destruye con los pies lo que hace con la mano. Pretty much it's like his right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. A beber y a tragar que el mundo se va a acabar. Okay, it's like something like live for today, eating and drinking. For we may not get it tomorrow, or tomorrow is not promised. That kind of thing. Okay, so all of this is subject to changes, right? We have quite a few of others. Maybe they're visible. I don't know. Take a look. tirar la casa por la ventana. So through the house, through the window, that's a literal translation. So paying amount of money to achieve something, the equivalent English form would be spare no expense, pull out the stops, right? And this is not very common in English. Look at nunca es tarde para aprender. It's never too late to learn, as it seems. So some standard idioms like to hit the nail on the head, to be a piece of cake, to tuck your ears off, right? To stand up something, or I mean someone, to get lost. And there are quite a few of them. So estar hasta la sopa, it's like estar hasta la coronilla, there is no getting away. So to be even in the soup, he's even in the soup. So look at te conozco bacalao, okay? I know you catfish, but the proper way would be I know your little game. I know what your little game is. So, okay. And there are others, right? To run the show and so forth. So this is part of the repertoire necessary for a good translator. Also, we need to speak about some proverbs here. There is a very good book that I cannot recommend enough. I'm going to recommend you this book once more. It's a Duff book that I think you can find for free online. The name of the book is The Third Language. Okay. What is interesting about the third language is that what happens is that since proverbs are so pure, you know, and they're very heavy in terms of culture, a person tries to communicate the concept but does not preserve the musicality of the language for the punch. That's what is discussed here. So they end up speaking another language, which is a third language that is not the first or the second. It's more of an explanation of the first into the second. So a lot of the translations that we end up reading, they're not very good. Here are very clear examples of some proverbs that without the musical element, they simply don't make any sense, right? Take a look, tit for tat, old is gold, might is right, union strength, work is worship. So there is this repetition element in speaking and writing that gives the message its strength. So speaking a third language is trying to explain these things without finding an appropriate equivalence that preserves some of that punch, some of that musical element. When you say tit for tat, you have a lot of the T's over there. Or all for gold, you have the LD and the LD again, and might is right. You see HT and the HT, and so on, right? Times money, you have the M, and health is wealth. Silence golden. Haste makes waste, and more than a match. Those are especially useful because of the rhythm, because of the combination that is used, right? So some useful proverbs in English, if you read them, you'll discover that they go up and down as we pronounce them. And that's what makes them very effective. So it takes two to quarrel, you see? There is some element over there, some rhythm. Once bitten, twice shy. Love is blind. To talk big without having a big position. Where there is a will, there's a way. Riches have wings. You can't get oil from stones, right? Honesty is the best policy, right? See the Y ending over there? Money is the root of all evil. It takes all sorts to make a world, right? You have some vowel rhythm over there. A 9 days wonder. No one's hero in his house. Every cock fights pests on his own dunghill. Look which way the wind blows. Come what may. A drowning man catches at a straw. Rome wasn't built in a day, but Cameron quarrels with his tools. Silences have consent. Barking dogs seldom bite. Give loan enemy own, etc., etc. And we have some others on the side. When in Rome, do as Romans do. You can judge a book by its cover. You read what you saw. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Beggars can be choosers. Fortune favors the bold. And it goes, every dog has its day, right? And it goes on and on. So what we need is to build a strong repertoire loaded with proverbs so that we can decide. Well, this language is out there, but it's better always if we keep track of these expressions on our own, right? Okay. Now, all of this conversation is requires that we speak about register, style, and tone, right? These are very useful and important topics to talk about. Why? Because a lot of what we do with metaphors and similes, the other figures of speech that you saw over there, like hyperbole and oxymoron, etc., and what we do with proverbs and sayings, and how we implement idioms, this is all related to the register, style, and tone that a person would have to adjust. So within a given language, and even for a single individual, there are different forms of language to be used at different socioeconomic levels and situations. Clearly, style, tone, and feel of language will be different if individuals speaking or writing are engineers, bus drivers, doctors, students, street people, politicians, spouses, etc. Any one individual in a society speaks with a different style when communicating with one's boss, peers, family, lover, children, cat, or dog. The style and tone are also conditioned by the specific circumstances of the communication occasion. Okay? Some people say that we need to speak to children as if they were adults for them to uh, get the idea of what proper communication is they say that many children don't learn languages properly because parents speak to them a baby talk. So all of this is arguable because the situation is that we have different registers and their boundaries, right? Their gender, their age, and their also role and their power influenced. And even when you talk to your pet, you have to think about this, right? Uh, uh, they say we have to be careful about what we say or how we say things, right? Linguists refer to these different levels of language as the register of the language. So it's not the same when you talk to your grandmother and when you talk to your boss or when you talk to a friend at a bar, right? That's another situation. And this is important to the translator because he or she must attempt to transfer the same register from the source language to the target language, lest some meaning be lost. According to theories of language, the principal social factor which determines the register include, as I was saying, age, sex, class, occupation, caste, religion, country of origin, region, schooling, degree of bilingualism. We can also classify the registers as ranging from excessively formal, pedantic jargon, or through formal, neutral, casual, and vulgar. The range of this register can be illustrated by examples. So we have different register levels there on the left: pedantic, formal, neutral, casual, vulgar. Okay, so we have then the degrees, right? Expired. We cannot say that someone expired like Mildred Larson expired. I just show you the photo. I mean, would you understand what I'm saying? No, but if you say, well, Mildred Larson was a special translator, theorist, she passed in 2020, just to rephrase that, died also. But then if I tell you that she kicked a bucket, then that's not good. I cannot, that's disrespectful. Or croaked, Okay, like the Mexicans say, like trono. Okay, that doesn't respect the person's memory. So I should not use this language register if I'm going to refer respectfully about a person's passing. So it should be either passed or died, but it cannot be pedantic like expired and say that she expired. Then I don't know what your opinion is. So yeah, we have face, neutral, the countenance and visage. Those are above, but I think could be easily misunderstood by the commoner. But common people won't understand a countenance or a visage. Okay, I think visage would translate um, as some fancy word, very difficult. So probably casual will be the mug, and vulgar will be the kisser to refer to a person's face. Okay, that's disrespectful, right? So about a person who is consume alcohol and is going through the phases of processing alcohol in their system, neutral is drunk or intoxicated. That'll be more diagnostic. But inebriated, people would not understand that. But you say plaster or hammered, that's disrespectful. You're lacking respect for a person's condition, and this is toxic. Person doesn't have any sympathy or empathy. So comparative linguistics, through comparative linguistics, we observe that English has a tendency to be very concise and even dense because of its ability to string together adjectives and nouns. Spanish, on the other hand, was used a series of phrases, prepositional phrases. In American English, especially at the upper levels of register, pedantic, very high, jargon, and formal does this to excess, right? So probably sometimes they go overboard and overuse that. So this is a characteristic that causes it some difficulties when translating into Spanish. So thus a bridge becomes a load-bearing facility. Students become a student body. A book becomes a reading material. So, so you see, this is in English. So the higher registers of Spanish use their own idiosyncratic devices consisting of circumlocution, imagery, and other phraseology when translated. And those tend to sound, as you read here, the word bombastic and comical because it's cynical to some extent. They end up speaking about something else. So a frequent indicator of an inexperienced translator is the mixing of register. So there is a jarring note in a different register in a text which otherwise seem normal. So bear in mind that as a translator, the register of a text is part of the meaning which must be conveyed across the language gap, just as much as the meaning carried by lexicon and syntax. There are times when a translator is sorely tempting to clean up the text in the process of translation to make it sound more appropriate. So you're rewriting. The cleanup is the rewriting part. There may be also concern that if material is left at a low or inappropriate register, the translator will be blamed for a bad translation. But this type of change can also alter or change the deep meaning. Okay, the deep meaning. So Engelbert cites the case of a legal translator faced with translating several obscene epithets or insults, right? Insulting language, which a woman stated her husband had hurled her at her during an altercation, so domestic violence, right? The translator did not wish to offend anyone and substituted much milder terms, and in the process distorted the deeper meaning of the legal document. So the guiding principle here is GIGO, right? Garbage in, garbage out. If one can put it in a lower register, it should go this way. But I think you should not get into a role that is not yours. You're there for communication, not to censor anything. So here we have an instance of that I would like to be a takeaway from this seminar is that you have different levels for lexical use, inebriated to formal, neutral, drunk. That's for everybody's understanding. Hammer would be vulgar. Not that the other people will not understand it, but that's inaccurate. Right? Should be avoided. And you see across registers these examples like delectable, nice, cool. The cool is vulgar, same as okay, crummy. But neutral would be nice, fine, and awful. That's why those are more familiar to us. As soon as you look, you know that what they mean. Formalities are excessive also. I'd like to know if you have any comments concerning this before I move further. All right, if you don't have any comments, I'm moving along. Okay. And we should be talking about interpretation also. We haven't said anything about interpretation during the seminar. And I think it's very important for us to at least refer to it because it's a topic that it's a part of the translation market. Right now, at present, for example, in our country, most of the work required is interpretation, right? But then it's challenging, and many people feel unfit or untrained to face the challenge of interpreting. But this is what we get, for example, at Universidad de Panama, it's a large venue in our country. Many speakers deliver conferences in many faculties and departments and institutes and different bodies of the university, and they do it in English, right? They do it mostly in English. Even coming from Europe or elsewhere in Asia, they come and speak in English. And well, they lack somebody who would step up to the challenge of interpreting for the audience. Um, this is so necessary. Just to give you an example, the last time I did it was at veterinary faculty, and they had like 7 different speakers coming from the United States. Some of them came from the academy because they were coming from some universities in the States. Others were professionals uh, working for state offices or state departments that had to do with animal care and this sort of thing. So it's very challenging. And then none of their specialists wanted to do the interpretation work. And I don't know what they do in many cases. They listen to the presentation in English, so I think people are being forced to learn English. I think that's what's happening right now. So here we will address, sorry about cutoff phrase or sentence, some aspects of what is known as escort and consecutive interpretation, because this is, what we could do most of the cases around here. Now, simultaneous or conference interpreting, that's another thing. That's another story. This is studied in some big universities, as you know. Generally, between 3 languages, you need 3 languages. You need language A, language B, and language C in order for you to obtain a degree. Especially if you go to the UK, and I think the largest or most prestigious translation university in the United States is the Middlebury School of Translation Studies, formerly known as the Monterey Institute for International Studies. That's in California. And I think it's probably along with Kent University. Kent, I think it's in Kentucky or one of those states. I'm not so sure, but that Kent University and or maybe Tennessee. I'm not sure about Kent, but I do know that Middlebury School is in California. It's one of the most prestigious translation interpretation, conference interpretation. Conference interpretation is a specialized master's degree that you can go for through Chevening. That people study that in 1 year. I think only one or two Panamanians ever obtain a degree in that area. And as I was saying before, important universities in the UK um, train people in that regard. So yeah, okay. As you read here, you should never accept an assignment as a simultaneous interpreter without this preparation. On the other hand, if you pursue a career in international business or diplomacy or travel extensively, you may have contacts that can help you out getting to the field, and you may aid communication being a consecutive interpreter. Okay, this is a section to provide you with some warnings and some techniques that could be useful if you ever get embarked in one of these missions, right? If the nature of your career puts you in this situation, people will probably know of your abilities, so and they're gonna ask, ask you to step up to the plate. So if you're identified as someone with language skill, there will come a day in which you will be asked to interpret, right? Maybe for that office or company as part of your work. So, boss may not be someone with the budget to hire a professional interpreter. So they will offer you the opportunity to show your worth for a company or the office, right? If you think that your possibilities are not as good, you may be handed an opportunity to embarrass yourself, right? Okay, but the opportunity will come, and then we better be prepared, right?
Professor,
Yes.
I remember that you made an interpretation for Noam Chomsky.
Oh,
How was
yeah,
that
I did.
experience?
That was very challenging, but that was pretty short, because the other interpretations I've done before are like hour and a half, 2 hours long, and for that, I what I normally do is I ask for some writing, and then you will see why, because I need to have at least a paper of what people have written to nourish my brain with some of that technical English that they use. In the case of Dr. Chomsky, he was more into politics because, as you know, he was not only a linguist but an important political thinker. So a lot of his presentation wasn't very technical. So it was easier for me to go ahead and get by. Simultaneous or consecutive interpretation, they're kind of straight jackets that you put on, right? At the Faculty of Veterinarian Sciences, I did that as simultaneous, and I did that for an hour and a half, right? That was very, very exhausting. I ended up tired, really, really, really tired. But when it's consecutive, it's a little bit easier because you can also take some notes along the process. You allow the person to speak, then you take some notes and you move on. So yeah, those things are risky too, but we do our best always. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me about it. I had forgotten about that altogether. So look, here I obtained that from this source, which is very open and public, right? The U.S. State Department. They take the approach that as a foreign service officer, um, you need to be ready to assist in interpretation because of time, money, or opportunity constraints that they may not get someone fully, appointed full time or in the office at the moment for a professional one or language expert. So there's some guidelines, so checklist for non-professional interpreters, right? Because this is an activity that the role is not always fulfilled because it takes a lot of training. Okay, I'm gonna move this on. Hold on a second. Okay, so there are different stages. Now, the first stage that you need to get yourselves into is pre-meeting preparations. Okay, so do not agree to act as an interpreter until you know just what the meeting is about. You should be familiar with the subject matter and the participants. Find out in what direction you're being asked to interpret, just into English, which would be the easier task, or also into Spanish, right? Make sure everyone knows you're not a professional interpreter so that you will not be expected to do some simultaneous. Okay, so yeah, simultaneous is very challenging. Well, it depends on how willing you are to take a chance. But if you're good at consecutive, you can try simultaneous too. Research as much as you can about the meeting. Read background materials and minutes and records of prior meetings. Make a bilingual glossary of acronyms and technical terms that you're likely to encounter. This is important because they may end up saying some things that you have never heard of, and it's a good thing that you have at least something handy that you'll know what to say. So get the physical arrangements, right, for the meeting. You should sit or stand next to your principal if you're interpreting for just one person. If you're interpreting between two principals, you should be between the two. So your position matters a lot. Okay, you're an in-betweener. Your role is not to be visible. You cannot take any lead. You have to go more for communication than anything. Find out ahead of time how many people you will be expected to interpret for. Okay, even though only the principal may be mentioned, it is possible that she's accompanied by assistants who could also help. Okay, so you're looking for help. Talk to your principal ahead of time, see what he or she wants to, how she wants to proceed or he wants to proceed. Make suggestions. You want him to pause after each sentence, paragraph, or complete speech or statement. I also remember I did that at La Colina. Once we had some visitors from Norwegian accreditation agency, and they had a lot to say. So my agreement with the Norwegian official from the accrediting agency that they were working with registrar's office to update the systems over there for the issuing of digital diplomas and this kind of thing, and the links that would replace transcripts and that kind of sort of thing. I agreed with him. Speak in full paragraphs. Then I'm going to render the interpretation for the full paragraph so as to cover as much information as possible. So in the shortest period of time. So that was another experience I had that was helping with the curriculum office up there at Colina. So sometimes you need to bear this in mind. Um, Take a suitable notepad. This is essential for especially consecutive interpretation. For simultaneous interpretation is, you know, it's an it's like, you cannot go ahead without some pen and paper. You need that. Absolutely. Okay. If the event is a sit down meeting, a large or legal side pad is fine. But if the event is a formal dinner or speech, your pad should be smaller, right? 3 to 5 inches to avoid this awkward leafing through in front of people and, in front of the coffee cup or the glass of water, right? And that could affect even the photo that people like taking in those events. Now, during the meeting, so you should sit or stand where you hear the speaker. Don't be shy about moving if you have to, right? You have to do it because you need to understand. Speak clearly and with self-confidence, but not so loud as to distract those who are not making use of your services. Use the first person say, I accept your proposal, not the ambassador accept your proposal. So you should use first person. So you are like assuming his or her, you're personifying this person, right? I accept your proposal, not the ambassador, but I accept your proposal and so forth. And then you move on. First person. Avoid giving your personal opinion. You are there as a faithful mirror of the speaker. So, know your place. Don't say he says, maybe, or he's lying, or no, no. Move through the preliminaries and social niceties at a fast but not rude clip. Slow down and be redundant if necessary during key points in the meeting. So all that is empty chatter that people do because of social, topics or whatever, or jokes. That's should be taken lightly. Don't focus your interpretation there. Focus on the core content, the message. If the speaker goes too long without giving you the opportunity to interpret, remind him that your capabilities are limited and you need to have the speech in shorter bursts. Okay. This may be hard to do in formal occasions, but if you do it, if you want to be effective or are to be so. During social events and walk-arounds, keep your principal in sight and don't get carried away with your own socializing. Your principal, should be able to get you in 5 seconds if he needs you. So stick around, right? Or don't get distracted. Pace yourself. Don't burn out in 10 minutes, since you might have to keep going for a couple of hours. Okay? Bear this in mind. You never know. Those are tricky. Get the text ahead of time if possible and work out a written translation. I always remember Professor Gladys Junsan used to tell me that interpretation is it's it's a skill that is limited. You have some years during which you could be functional, because this is something that you're going to end up losing as you age. But that is why we have notepads, and you will support your interpretation with the notes, right? Because we're going to keep everything in mind. You'll do your very best, uh, focusing on keywords that the speaker will produce, or so. But you need to take notes, and as the interpretation gets heavier and dense, then you're going to be right there, keeping track of everything. So you need to develop some note-taking system. A as important aspect not mentioned in the State Department's checklist is the use of notes. Okay, you should not try and write everything down exactly. You should develop some kind of a jotting down system, and you cannot write out everything. So just focus on content words, right? Content words, the nouns, the adjectives, the elements or the phrases that convey most of the information. So this is it. Yeah, there is also a topic here that I have prepared, court interpretation, which is a specific case. Why legal interpretation, or why legal translation? Hey guys, you've been listening ever since we began on Monday. This is an area that is critical for communication across language pairs. In the case of English and Spanish, it's all about migration, transactions, business, communication, tourism. So all of that lives under the umbrella of legal topics. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to make a parenthesis over here. I was informed by the organizers of our event here, our seminar, that at around 11:30 there could be an interruption because of we're going to have a closing for the seminar. as it seems, either the dean or vice dean or an authority is going to come over and deliver some encouragement and motivational speech or words to us as the closing element of the presentation. So if I do not complete the topic at hand, then you're going to find it in the PowerPoint anyway, because I have to post it as today, as of today, this afternoon, I mean. So the other thing is, probably there could be an interruption. So Professor Marisol or Professor Randy, whenever you feel the time has come for me to stop, please let me know, okay?
Yes, sure, Professor Cardenas.
Yeah, let me know, because I'll never know. There is no way for me to know that the dean is waiting to go, to go in session. So don't let him wait. Okay, you tell me, Professor Cardenas, stop, because the dean is here. I'm gonna be stopping right away. All right.
Yes, sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's courtesy is important always. Yeah, and I know probably they have tight tight agendas. So okay, court interpretation in the U.S. Now this is a big business. Okay, by that I mean, if you want to get involved in some interpretation that really pays off, this is one of those fields. It's a specialized field in interpretation. Interpretation is already pretty demanding. We all know that. So court interpretation is even more specialized. So this is about assisting defendants in the U.S. court system who do not speak English. So who could be your client? You could have anybody. For example, Maduro, former Venezuelan president. I'm sure he's paying for a very good court interpreter to assist him in what is going on right now. They say that right now he's singing, right, about all the beauties that happened during his term in office, long term, by the way. And I'm sure his court interpreter is right there to tell him what is required for him to cooperate and say, not to say, and so on, right? About his rights and so on. So this is an important role. So can you imagine how much an hour, the hourly rate for an interpretation for Maduro? I'm sure that could be over $500 an hour. I'm so sure. Maybe $1,000 an hour, maybe more, right? They're willing to pay for that, and they need to pay for that. So in recent years, this problem has grown increasingly serious in the United States because of the large number of such cases and the impact of the Federal Court Interpreters Act. The basic principle is that equal justice under the law cannot be guaranteed unless the defendant fully understands the language being used in his or her case. So according to this act, for justice to be served, this defendant is entitled to interpretation and explanations on everything. Okay, otherwise, the trials and all the argumentation and everything is going to be void. Okay, different standards and the lack of qualified interpreters meant that in practice, few non-English speaking defendants were really provided with this guarantee. So they were dragging themselves into a problem, legal problem. So the 1978 Federal Courts Interpreters Act was an important milestone, not just for the legal system, but also as it was the first and so far the only government attempt to regulate and certify qualifications of interpreters and translators, right? Okay. Unlike many other countries, in the United States, anyone can call themselves an interpreter or translator without any check on their qualifications. In 1978, the 1978 Act, was designed to bring some order to this situation. As far as the federal courts were concerned, of course. The act was introduced in 1977 by the Senate's Judicial Improvement Committee, which singled out citizens of Spanish, Puerto Rican, Chinese, Native American, and other heritages, as well as deaf citizens who would communicate in sign language. In order to set a standard for court interpreters, an exam was prepared, with Spanish as the test case. The exam was supervised by the Office of Court Reporting and Interpreting Services of the Administrative Office of the United States Courts in Washington. The first part of the test is a preliminary screening to see if the candidate has the approximately 2 years of college in both languages, which is deemed to be the minimum level to understand legal proceedings in federal courts.
Professor Cárdenas,
Excuse me,
just to inform you that the dean, the Dr. Olmedo, is in the here in the
Okay,
meeting.
very good. Thank you very much for informing me. Now I'm going to say goodbye to you guys, everybody. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much for attending this seminar. I'm going to be posting the PowerPoint with all of this information this afternoon. Let us have our dean deliver some message to us. Well, thank you for your attention and all the best. Kind regards. Bye-bye.
Thanks to you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor Cárdenas. Well, now let's receive our dean, Dr. Olmedo García.
Bueno, sí, está bien. Te voy a-
Buenos días a todos y a todas.
Saludos, decano.
Buenos días.
Buenos días, decano.
Gracias. Creo que
Buenos
se
días.
escucha
Buenos
reiterando.
días.
Buen día. ¿Se escucha bien?
Sí.
Sí.
Quiero expresarle a todos los participantes del seminario que bajo la coordinación de la profesora Marisol Ortega, nuestra coordinadora a los últimos años de educación continua en el departamento de inglés, quiero expresarle a Marisol mi agradecimiento sincero y eterno por habernos acompañado durante estos años últimos en esa coordinación de educación continua. Creo que ha sido una responsabilidad de entender algunos vacíos de nuestra educación, de nuestra especialidad y la visión de la sociedad que estamos formando. Igualmente, quiero esta mañana reconocer a nuestra amiga y compañera decana electa, la profesora Gloria Dejó, ese compromiso de seguir acompañándonos en esta unidad académica valiosa para nuestra facultad. Creo que nosotros hemos emprendido una tarea con esta política de la educación continua, de tratar de desarrollar no solamente la experticia del conocimiento, sino también darle una herramienta más, un valor agregado más a ese conocimiento. Hoy en un mundo que estamos siendo amenazados por una batalla cultural, creando un fenómeno de la posverdad y narrativas de odio, de discriminación. Creo que la ciencia y el lenguaje deben estar desafiando esta ruptura epistemológica para darnos una nueva camino de entender que hay otras oportunidades para crear sociedades, comunidades. Y hay veces que nosotros no entendemos cómo podemos hacer los procesos interculturales del conocimiento y de la ciencia. Y en este programa de educación continua he sido testigo que a lo largo de los últimos años hemos dado una visión del lenguaje, de la perspectiva intercultural, del método, de la gramática y lo más importante, de la concepción interdisciplinaria de la ciencia. Podemos compartir saberes, la historia, el lenguaje, la gramática, sociología, el medio ambiente, francés, y podemos compartir visiones. Y ese es uno de los grandes herramientas que nosotros hemos logrado, hasta el punto que hemos discutido el impacto de los organismos, de la concepción digital en la ciencia, y creo que en el lenguaje lo hemos compartido en los últimos años, formándonos en este tipo de formación. Por eso, al culminar esta tarea que emprendimos ya hace varios días, para nosotros es importante saber que tenemos un nicho en nuestra facultad que está dando una cuota de más, no solamente para formarnos con competencia, sino con una visión del mundo de que la herramienta de la ciencia debe estar al servicio de los pueblos, y los pueblos como los nuestros, que tienen disparidades, que hoy se cuestiona la inversión social en la educación, que hoy se cuestiona que nuestro sistema educativo tiene limitaciones y hay intentos de querer cambiar la educación, los procesos educativos, de conocer los derechos. Yo creo que nosotros tenemos que seguir batallando para que nuestra universidad y nuestra facultad pueda lograr los más altos, excelentes rankings de nuestra universidad. Por eso creo que hemos cumplido en eso que llamamos la educación continua. Hemos acreditado el plan de estudio de inglés, hemos acreditado la actualización de los docentes, hemos propuesto un programa de doctorado y de maestría en lingüística, y hemos dado el aval para la apertura de 4 ofertas de maestría en los centros regionales. Hemos aprendido a caminar, punto. Y yo creo que el mejor testimonio y el mejor programa es este programa de educación continua. Por eso no pierdo ninguna oportunidad de estar en la apertura o en la clausura. Porque me gusta la gente que sueña, porque soñamos con esperanza. Y la única oportunidad que tenemos nosotros en este mundo es no dejar atrás a nadie. Y por eso, compañera Gloria, usted es parte de esa realidad y de esa magia que hemos hecho, de darnos la oportunidad, con libertad de cátedra, de principio, de proponer las mejores herramientas, no solamente los contenidos, porque eso tiene un valor. Lo importante es la formación que hoy hemos discutido, ese debate y esos diálogos y esas miradas que hemos aprendido. Y cada aporte en esa construcción es para construir sociedades, comunidades, la ciencia y el conocimiento que nosotros queremos. Por eso, antes de retirarnos, quiero agradecerle que este acompañamiento de los casi que 40 miembros participantes en este seminario, pero es para todo el departamento. Y ustedes tienen un lujo de tener una participante con nuestra decana electa en el seminario. Miren ustedes, nuestras autoridades vinculadas directamente en este programa. Así que agradecido a la comisión de Educación Continua de nuestro Departamento de Inglés, a nuestra directora, a nuestra coordinadora académica, la profesora Marisol, al expositor Rafael Cárdenas, que también ha estado acompañándonos. Felicitaciones, Rafael. Y a todos ustedes, gracias mil, un abrazo. Que sigamos construyendo la universidad de nuestros sueños. Buen día y agradecido de tenerlo siempre, eternamente. Gracias.
Well, thank you, Dr. Olmedo, for your words. Now we have the participation of our elected dean, Professor Gloria Hope. Go ahead, please.
Gracias.
You have the Microsoft. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Dr. Olmedo Garcia, our dean, members of the organizing committee, Professor Rafael Cárdenas, our speaker for the whole week. You have done a beautiful job, colleagues. It has been a pleasure to be part of this selected group for the whole week. Thank you for being here and for the great energy that you have poured into this work during this seminar. We have focused on something we do every day, but rarely we stop to analyze. And this is translation between Spanish and English. And the biggest challenge we face while doing it, which is language interference. When we talk about translation, we're not just changing words, we're working with meaning, culture, and an intent across two different linguistics systems. In this case, Spanish and English. During these sessions, we saw interference in different areas, like lexical interference, which are traps because our brains wants the easy, direct match. For example, sometimes when we say assisted at classes, and sometimes the students translate this as assist instead of attend. We have syntax interference. Spanish and English build sentences differently. For example, if I say, tengo 40 años, I'm 40 years old. We don't say, I have 40 years old. If we do translation word by word, is unnatural language, be either English or Spanish. And in this case, I'm going to refer to a little anecdote that Professor Daniel Atencio once told me. He said that he was in a beginner's class and he asked the students to translate entre y tome una silla. And guess what he got? Between and drink a chair. And he always laughed about this. And anytime he will see me, he will say, between and drink a chair. It was kind of a joke between ourselves. So we have to be careful because language interference causes errors in translation, confusion, and as Professor Cárdenas says, even legal problems, because we're there interfering and not giving our opinion. So we have to be very careful with our bilingual brain. We have to compare how native speaker will say it in the target language. The more input you put is the less interference that you will have. What are translators? What are we? What do we do? Translators are bridge builders. We don't move words from one side to another. We have to make sure that the meaning is clear with the right tone and clarity, because the goal is communication that works, trying to be as close as possible to language one. Professor Cárdenas, thank you very much. Our thanks to the organizing committee and to all the participants for their interest in this seminar. Now, let's go enjoy the weekend and prepare our pending homework that I have to do too. So enjoy your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Gloria, for your words and information. Well, let's see, Professor Cardenas, do you want to add something or say something?
I just said goodbye. I'll be posting the PowerPoint right after I'm out of session, so you will find it in Google Classroom. Make sure you have access so you can do everything. Remember the deadline also. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Cardenas. Well, now, Professor Marisol.
Well, we finished today. Wow. This week passed very quick, extremely quick. But anyway, I would like to add, just remember to sign for your attendance, and also remember that payment is important if you want your certificate. So if there is no payment, there is no certificate. And, yeah, you have to upload it uh, using the Google form that our coordinators from the coordination of continuing education committee is sending. So check in your mail. I know that it is there. If you have not uploaded your receipt, you have to do it. Remember that the coordination don't have any other way to know if you paid, if you don't upload your receipt, and that's important. Well, and for the rest, thank you all for being here. Professor Olmedo, you are always faithful, and you've been with us all of these years, almost, I think, 10 years. 10 years. But you've been always with us. Thank you for backing up us during all this time. And well, that will be it for today. God bless you all and have a nice day. Thank you all. Bye-bye. God bless you.
Thanks.
So,
Sí.